I never thought I'd find love in the arms of a cleaning lady after 15 years of loneliness. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a gray morning, the kind that clings to your chest like a weight. Rain tapped softly on the window, each drop a reminder of what was lost. I sat alone in my tiny living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life I had been holding onto with trembling hands. I could feel my heart race, a drumbeat of desperation pounding against my rib cage. Her name was Maria. I didn't just see her, she was a vibrant stroke of color against the murky canvas of my life. I first met her in the dim light of my cluttered apartment, where dust clung to the corners like shadows of regret. She hummed an old tune, a melody that pierced through my solitude. Each swish of her mop against the floor made my heart skip. I had forgotten what warmth felt like, but she carried it with her, even in a faded uniform, worn from years of toil. Maria wasn't just a cleaner, she was a glimpse of the life I longed for. She moved like a gust of wind, light and free, without a care in the world. I still remember the first time our eyes met. There was a spark. An electric connection that left my breath caught in my throat. Her eyes danced like fireflies under the dim overhead light. I could almost hear the whispers of the universe, urging me to reach out. But the world I inhabited was heavy, filled with memories of whispered promises and broken dreams. My friends, they watched me with concern, their pity hanging thick in the air. "You've got to move on," they said, but how could they understand? I was stuck in a loop of loneliness, and then the very next moment, here was Maria, breathing life back into me. Days turned into weeks, and the clock's hands spun mercilessly. Each time she stepped into my home, it felt like stepping into the light, yet another reminder of my darkness. My heart raced with each visit, my palms sweaty as I fumbled with words I hadn't dared to speak in years. Would she see me? Would she notice the lost soul beneath my weary exterior? But then came the twist. Her smile hid secrets. I felt it late one evening when she lingered too long near the window, staring out like she was gazing into another life. An urgency bubbled in my chest. Who was she really? This woman full of grace, yet wrapped in shadows of her own. That night, a knock shattered the silence. It was a voice I recognized but wished I could forget. "Where's Maria?" they called, a frantic desperation tinged with something darker. My heart dropped. Why was someone looking for her? I felt a chill run down my spine. I had to know more. Questions raced through my mind, pounding like the rain outside. What if she was in danger? What secrets was she hiding? And why was I, a man trapped in a cage of loneliness, suddenly so invested in her life? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain continued its relentless percussion against the window, and I found myself standing frozen at the door, heart pounding in a dissonant rhythm. The deep timbre of Maria's name echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain. The knocked door felt like a portal into a world I was unprepared for, a world beyond my dreary confines, a world filled with unknowns. I glanced back into my cluttered apartment, every misplaced item a relic of my sorrow. Dust swirled lazily around the half-lit room, almost taunting me with the memories it held, the photos of happier times that now seemed like distant dreams. The sound of that desperate voice, the voice of someone looking for Maria, brought me crashing back into the present. I had to know. I opened the door a crack. "Who's there?" I asked, unsure of what to expect. The man standing before me was disheveled, eyes wild with a fear that brought a chill to the air. "I'm looking for Maria," he pleaded, his voice tinged with urgency. "Have you seen her?" I hesitated, my mind racing. The instinct to protect someone I barely knew was overwhelming. "What do you want with her?" I shot back defensively. I felt an unfamiliar surge of bravery, a protective instinct ignited within me. "Isha's in trouble," he stammered, desperation spilling across his face. "I just need to talk to her. Please, she needs my help." Every warning light in my head flashed red. Who was this guy? And what kind of trouble could someone like Maria possibly be in? A flicker of doubt made me wonder if she was really as innocent as she appeared. Yet another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that this man might just be telling the truth. Before I could answer, I caught sight of the tension in his frame, the way he stood slightly hunched, as if the weight of the world bore down on him. An impulse surged through me, thought of Mariah's warm smile, and the intimacy that bloomed between us, a garden of sunlight among thorns. I haven't seen her," I whispered, even while a part of me screamed to reach out, to offer solace. "Please," he begged, moving closer, voice lowered in urgency. "You have to believe me. She's wrapped up in something dangerous. That's why she was so distant. She's scared." "Scared?" A surge of anger ignited within me. "You think you can just waltz in here and claim to know her? You don't know anything." Just then, my phone buzzed on the cluttered table. I grabbed it, the light illuminating my face in the dimness. It was a message from Maria. "I'm running late today, something came up." A tide of relief washed over me, mixed with confusion. What was something that could be so urgent? As I skimmed through the text, another thought pricked at my consciousness. Was this man linked to that urgency? Unable to accept that possibility, I took a deep breath and stepped back, keeping the door slightly ajar. "I won't turn you away, but if you're lying if you hurt her, I'd never hurt her," he replied fiercely, a fire igniting in his eyes. "I care about her." An unexpected pang of jealousy pierced me. Who was he to care for her? My heart wrestled with conflicting emotions, each pulling me further into an abyss of uncertainty. I reluctantly let him in, cautious of my decision. We sat in silence for a moment, tension thick in the air. He looked around and noticed the scattered remnants of my life, the ashes of my past. "You're not her kind of person, are you?" he said unexpectedly, his brow furrowed. I frowned, taken aback. "What do you know about me?" "Enough. You're lonely, but she brought you back to life, didn't she?" "You care for her," he said simply, those words striking a resonance in my soul. The realization settled uncomfortably within me. Here we both were, just two men in this strange tangled web seeking the same woman, each grasping at the threads of her existence. Suddenly, the air shifted, and I felt a wave of empathy for this man, for his struggle to reach her. Perhaps we weren't so different after all. We were merely participants in a shared narrative, desperate to shield her from whatever threat loomed over her. Then, the sound of a key turning in the lock pulled our attention toward the door. My heart raced, but this time with anticipation and dread. Maria was home. As the door creaked open and her silhouette framed the entrance, I felt the weight of countless secrets hang in the balance. I exchanged a look with the man beside me, a silent pact made in that fleeting moment of understanding. Whatever was about to unfold would shatter the delicate peace I had just begun to find. "Maria, a lot has happened while you were gone," I said cautiously, my voice trembling as I prepared to entwine her into this web I had never intended to spin. The moment Maria stepped into the room, the air thickened with tension. Her eyes flitted back and forth between me and the stranger, taking in the scene like an artist assessing an unfinished canvas. The warmth of her smile was absent, replaced by a furrowed brow that deepened the lines of worry etched on her face. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice soft yet edged with concern. It felt like both a plea and a warning, as if she could sense the turmoil brewing beneath our silence. "Maria," I began, my mouth dry and trembling. How to even frame the words? "This is please," the man interrupted, rising to his feet, a desperate urgency etched into his features. "I'm here because you need help. You don't know, but things are moving fast, and you're in danger. I can explain everything. Just let me talk to you for a minute." I felt a surge of panic at his bluntness, a visceral protectiveness sparking within me. But the raw fear in his eyes pulled at my heartstrings. He was just a man lost in a chaotic world, searching for someone who could shatter that chaos. A man who, despite my reservations, wanted to protect Maria. I need to know what's going on, Maria finally said, her voice steady but soft, revealing the fissures in her facade. She took a step forward, erasing the physical distance between us and bridging the emotional gap that had grown like an unfathomable chasm. Then let's sit down, I suggested weakly, gesturing to the worn couch that seemed to absorb the weight of our collective fears. As we settled in, the temperature in the room shifted, growing colder, as if each of us exhaled a breath of anxious uncertainty. This isn't easy to explain, he began, his voice trembling with apprehension. But I've been tracking some people who are after you, Maria. I thought they'd left you alone, but it seems I was wrong. After me? Maria echoed, her eyes widening. Why? I watched her closely, trying to decipher the emotions playing across her features: confusion, concern, a flicker of fear. The very essence of her being was unraveling, and in that moment, I felt completely helpless. If only I could shield her from this nightmare. It's complicated, the man replied, running a shaky hand through his disheveled hair. You unknowingly witnessed something you weren't supposed to see. There are people who will go to great lengths to ensure their secrets stay buried. Maria's eyes darted to mine, searching for comfort, for answers. I wished I could put aside my feelings of jealousy and protectiveness toward her, but I found myself grappling with the shadows that danced just out of reach. Is this true? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the ground beneath her feeling as unstable as her resolve. I don't, I stammered, casting a glance at the man. I don't know what to believe, Maria. But I know the look in his eyes. He's scared and desperate. Is that meant to offer me comfort? She shot back, caught in a web of confusion. How could you possibly know? Maybe he's trying to exploit your insecurities about me. Maybe this is all a ruse. Maria! I exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. You need to listen, we're both trying to protect you. Tears pooled in her eyes, yet she blinked them away, her vulnerability catching like a moth in a flame. I just wanted a normal life. I thought I could start over, she whispered, her gaze dropping to the floor as despair twisted around her heart. Suddenly, a knock pierced the air, slicing our fragile moment into chaos. We all froze, a collective breath held tight in our chests. Another knock, this time heavier. It came with the urgency of a freight train barreling down the tracks, and I leapt to my feet. Stay here, I said, instinct gripping my heart. I closed the distance to the door, but the uncertainty of what lay lurking on the other side made every inch heavy. I cast one last glance back at Maria, where she remained poised on the couch between hope and despair, a fragile flower on the edge of a storm. My hand shook as I turned the knob, the door creaking open slowly. The man's presence loomed beside me, his eyes wide, mirroring my own. Trepidation. Standing on the other side was a figure half concealed in shadow, not entirely familiar but bearing an air of authority. Are you Maria? The figure demanded, voice stern, with an edge of something sinister. I felt a rush of cold sweat wash over me. My instinct, my very being screamed against the approaching threat, and as the figure stepped into the light, a familiar flash of dread coursed through me. That face, those piercing eyes, they matched the danger the man had described. Maria's breath hitched as she met my gaze, the unspoken understanding silent yet deafening. Run! I shouted, my heart hammering as I pushed her back, instinctively shielding her from whatever was to come. But as Maria stumbled backward, reality crashed down around us, shattering the fragile safety net we had fought for. The man's voice rang out behind me, drowning in the roar of a storm that had only just begun to unfurl its fury. The door slammed shut behind the intruder, and in that same moment, I felt the air leaving my lungs, thick and heavy with despair. Maria stumbled back against the couch, her eyes wide with fear, the rawness of the moment eclipsing everything we had built together. But before we had time to process the threat, the man next to me leapt into action. Stay behind me, he shouted, instinctively forming a barrier between us and the shadowy figure that had entered our sanctuary. I could feel the electric energy of his fear-each pulse echoing my own. The figure stepped forward, light catching on something metallic at their side. You can't protect her, they hissed. She's already marked. Marked? Maria breathed, confusion flashing across her face, but the man's fierce determination silenced her questions. He wasn't just any stranger, he was a protector, someone who had come here with a purpose, and suddenly, I felt a rush of respect for him despite the tension swirling around us. "Get out!" I shouted again, the instinct to defend Maria driving me. This was not how our lives were meant to intertwine. We had only just begun to explore the delicate strands connecting us, and now, they teetered on the brink of destruction. A slight smirk crossed the shadowy figure's face as they took a step closer, their voice dripping with condescension. "You think you can save her? You think you understand what's at stake? She's in deeper than you both realize." I glanced back at Maria, her face pale, her eyes darting between us as if caught between two worlds. It struck me then, just how fragile our time together had been, hanging by the thinnest thread like a spider's web spun in twilight. And in that fleeting moment, something shifted within the room. From the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement. Maria rising from the couch, determination sewn into the fabric of her being. "I may not know everything," she said, her voice trembling but resolute, "but I won't let you intimidate me." The figure's gaze snapped to her, and I was momentarily stunned by her bravery. "You don't get it!" they shouted. "You are in danger every moment you breathe. This isn't the world you think it is. Then tell me," Maria pleaded, her voice rising with passion. "If I'm in danger, then why not share what you know? Why not give me a fighting chance?" The assertiveness was surprising, left an imprint in the atmosphere, anchoring us just a little deeper in our shared struggle. The man beside me shifted slightly, as if ready to move, but I signaled him to hold. "Maybe you're right," the intruder finally conceded, their voice dropping, as if weighing their words carefully now. "But if I tell you what I know, you might wish you hadn't." "Try me," Maria said firmly, the fire in her spirit igniting hope within me that I hadn't felt before. The man next to me glanced at her, a newfound respect mingling with confusion in his eyes, and then I noticed a small glimmer of kindness in the figure's expression. Perhaps this was their way of softly bending, of realizing that we were more than just pawns in a dangerous game. "There's a reason they're after you," the figure said, "and it's not just about what you saw. It's something more. Something that could change lives." "What do you mean?" Maria pressed, inching forward, pulling the envisioned thread of hope closer. "Your past, it intertwines with powers far greater than you understand. You saw something that made you a target." "Yes," the figure continued, their demeanor subtly shifting, "but the truth, it's more than that. You have abilities, potential that can be dangerous in the wrong hands. It's not just about protecting you, it's about making sure they don't also seek out those you love." My heart raced as Maria's expression changed, processing their words. I reached for her hand, wanting to ground her amidst the swelling tide of revelation. But even as I did, fear gripped me tightly, the realization that the danger was far from overclawing at the edges of my mind. "Why tell us this now?" I demanded, the protective instinct overshadowing my doubts. "What's stopping you from taking her?" "Because they replied, "the world is shifting. I never thought I'd find love in this chaos, but somehow, the three of us are now part of something bigger than ourselves, a story that transcends our immediate fears." Love amidst chaos. The phrase echoed in my mind, and as goosebumps rippled across my flesh, a dawning realization washed over me. Maybe, just maybe, hope was teetering on the edge of this storm. It depended on how deeply we were willing to dive into the truth. But the tension snapped as suddenly as it had built in the next instant. The frail thread connecting us unraveled. Another knock echoed, this time coming from the back door, shattering the fragile moment we had begun to build. Panic surged through me again, and I risked one final look back at Maria. It was too soon to bask in newfound hope. The storm was only just beginning, and we were still amid its As the door swung open, my heart plummeted. Standing there was someone I hadn't seen in years, someone from my past, someone I had buried deep in the recesses of my memory, barely recognizable, but unmistakably here. "Hello," they said with a chilling calm, a secretive smile creeping over their lips. "Is the chaos that dangerous after all?" With that remark slushing through the air, our world narrowed into focus, every heartbeat amplified as we stood on the brink of a new revelation just waiting to unfold. The room was steeped in tension, each person on high alert, hearts thrumming like frantic drumbeats. My gaze darted back and forth between Maria and this unexpected figure from my past, a person who once held a central role in shaping my choices, the ghost of a life I had fought so hard to escape. Paul, I breathed, the name slipping from my lips as if testifying against myself. The world felt smaller in that moment, the air charged with unspoken questions and a history that threatened to suffocate. "Surprised to see me?" he drawled, his voice smooth yet tinged with a dark humor that made my skin crawl. "I always did have a knack for appearing when you least expected it." Maria's eyes flickered between us, piecing together a puzzle she had yet to comprehend. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice steady, though I could sense her confusion bubbling beneath the surface. "A ghost from my past. One I thought I had lost for good," I replied, my voice harsh with unprocessed emotions. I stepped toward Paul, instinctively bringing my body between him and Maria, protective reflex. "Such sweet words for someone who caused you so much pain," Paul retorted, his smirk unyielding. "But I'm not here to reminisce about the bad old days. Our time is far too limited for that. What do you want?" I demanded, every instinct urging me to prepare for a confrontation. Paul hesitated, his charm momentarily faltering. "I just came to make sure you were still around to see the end of this game, the game the rest of us have been playing for much longer than you know." "Game?" Maria echoed, her expression morphing into one of steely resolve. "What are you talking about?" "It's complicated," Paul sighed, taking a step closer, as if sharing a secret. "You see, while you've been in your little bubble of ignorance, the world has been turning, and players have been moving around the board. Some of us have our roles handed to us. Others, well, they fight to define their own paths." I felt a twinge of recognition at his words. The game. The need for power. The fleeting comfort of having someone like Paul in my life, those reckless days when choices blurred between right and wrong. "I'm done playing your games, Paul. If you're not here to help, then just leave." "Help?" he chuckled, the sound unsettling yet oddly magnetic. "You don't understand. I'm the last person you want as an ally." "What does that mean?" Maria pressed, her eyes narrowed. "Stop playing around and be honest. You're in deeper than you realize, and yet you have something that could shift the balance." His gaze locked onto Maria, a strange intensity lighting up his features. "And I've come to collect? You're not making any sense," I said, stepping closer, the urgency of the moment causing my pulse to quicken. "If you're here to make threats." "Not threats. Opportunities," he interrupted smoothly. "Maria, you might be the key to something transformative, but you need to let me show you." "Show me what?" Her voice was almost defiant, and I felt a swell of admiration mixed with fear. Despite the precarious position we found ourselves in, Maria's spirit was a fierce flame pushing against the looming darkness. "I can offer you power, knowledge, a way to harness what lies within you," Paul said, each word laced with siren-like allure. "Storms come and go, but I can teach you how to create your own. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying," I interjected, shaking my head. My instincts screamed danger. The lure of power was often paired with high stakes. "I know you, Tom. You always did think you could save the world single-handedly. But sometimes the bravest can be the most foolish," Paul said, a flicker of frustration passing over his handsome features. The man who had been our protector cleared his throat, a low sound belying the tension that crackled in the air. "It seems you're causing more harm than good, Paul. I suggest you leave while you still can." Paul's grin widened. "You think you're the hero in this story? This is no fairy tale, my friend. Yours truly isn't walking out without what they came for." Suddenly, my phone buzzed against my thigh, an unexpected sound, blooming like a weed in the cracks of our disarray. I pulled it out, the lit screen casting a flash of light that felt momentarily grounding. The unsaved number sent a wave of dread through me, yet I couldn't ignore the urgency of it. I glanced up at Maria, who was tracking my movements, a silent question swimming in her eyes. "Who is it?" she asked softly. It's but a loud crash interrupted, a deafening sound that reverberated through the air like an ominous warning. The back door we had neglected suddenly burst open wide, slamming against the wall. Shadows rushed in, dark and aggressive, filling the room and threatening to swallow us whole. In that moment of chaos, I felt the connection of our collective fear, our breaths hitching as realization set in. The game was on a level deeper than we had anticipated, and now, the stakes had risen dangerously high. I took a step back, my body instinctively reacting, but the whispers of danger grew closer, like predators circling their prey. And in the chaos of fear, I realized I must choose swiftly, protect Maria, challenge Paul, or confront the demons rushing in with the darkening storm. As the darkness neared, armed figures looming just beyond the threshold, I could have sworn I saw Paul smirk, as if this unraveling was a game he had orchestrated all along. Life would never let us have our peace, not until the final act, it seemed. And I could feel the weight of impending doom pressing heavily against my chest, a reminder that our journey was just beginning, and the real threats were only moments away. The room pulsed with the intensity of fear and uncertainty. Every breath drawn was laden with the potential for catastrophe. The figures spilling into the space carried an air of malevolence, silhouettes that absorbed the light and left nothing but dread in their wake. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet the stakes felt painfully high, anchoring my feet to the ground. "Get back!" I commanded, positioning myself in front of Maria, ready to shield her from whatever danger lurked just out of sight. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I could feel Maria's presence beside me, her steady breath a contrast to the chaos that threatened to envelop us. Paul, ever the enigmatic presence, stood slightly amused by our fright, as if he had anticipated this very scenario. "Oh, come now. Why fight it? You know this dance well." His eyes flickered between the intruders and us, as though gauging the next move in a game he had us all trapped in. With a sudden clarity, I understood his cruelty thrived on our suffering and uncertainty. "What have you done?" I spat, my voice thick with accusation and hurt. When I looked at Maria, her brows were knitted together, confusion and determination battling for control. From the darkness surged one of the figures, a tall man cloaked in shadows, his features obscured. "We're here for what belongs to us," he snarled, a dagger of malice embedded in each word. "Your little friend," he continued, his eyes zeroing in on Maria, "is in over her head. Hand her over, and this can all end peacefully. Or we can do this the messy way." I felt Maria stiffen next to me, her resolve strengthening. "I won't go anywhere with them," she declared boldly, her voice resonating with a fierce defiance I admired. "Brave words for a novice in a dangerous game," Paul sneered. "But you don't know what you're up against. Surrender now, and you may yet have a chance to fight another day." The tension twisted like an indomitable force, refusing to allow a single breath of levity into the room. All of our eyes danced between the menacing figures and Paul, who seemed to revel in the chaos he had unleashed. I grasped Maria's hand, entwining our fingers, our subtle bond of trust forming an invisible shield against the impending storm. As I prepared for what I feared was a fight that was unwinnable, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Another figure emerged, clad in the same shadows as those who had already entered. My heart plummeted as I recognized the intent behind their approach, a new danger entering the fray. Was there no end to the subterfuge and betrayal? "I always knew you'd come, Clara," Paul said, his tone dripping with sardonic affection as he faced the newcomer. The room fell silent for a brief moment, the air heavy with disbelief as Clara stepped forward. "How could you?" I breathed out, staring into the eyes of the one person I thought was safe from Paul's web of lies. "You're here with him? Don't be foolish, Tom." "I never wanted to be part of this," she responded, her voice quaking as she edged closer to Paul. "But it's too late to turn back now." The floor beneath me felt unsteady as I processed her words. Clara, the one person who had shown me kindness after years of isolation, now stood on the precipice of betrayal. My heart ached. I had finally begun to let someone inanely to face this cruel twist of fate. "Together we can find a better way, Clara," I begged, desperation leaking into my voice. "You matter more than whatever game this is. It doesn't have to be like this." But even as my words hung in the air, I could see the internal struggle reflected in her eyes. Paul had taken root in her mind, and fear seemed to have wrapped around her like a vice. "He's offering us something more than we could ever have on our own, Tom," she said, her gaze flickering between Paul and me. "You don't understand what it means to have power. Clara, please," I pleaded, but I could feel the distance expanding between us, a chasm carved by secrets and fears. "Stop pretending you can save everyone," she cried, anguish breaking through the poise she had tried to maintain. "This isn't a fairy tale. You can't save me. I have to do this for myself," the room erupted as the intruder seized the moment, advancing with predatory certainty. Maria squeezed my hand tighter, an anchor against the rising tide of despair. In that tumultuous moment, I understood something fundamental. We were all caught in a web spun by choices that were sometimes not our own. I could feel the dread pulsing around me, but deep within my chest flickered the fragile flame of hope. "Whatever you think you want from us, Paul, you'll never have," I declared, my voice carrying a quiet strength. "You don't possess what matters most, the bonds we forged. You'll never take her from me," I continued, my eyes locking onto Mariah's. "No, but I can certainly take everything else," Paul replied, his smirk returning, a tempestuous glint in his eye. With that proclamation hanging in the air, the shadows surged forward, and I knew we stood at the brink of something monumental. Our choices had converged in this moment, but so had our fears and potentials. The clash would be inevitable, and I braced for the onrush of danger, uncertain if love or darkness would prevail. And as the storm pressed in, I felt a stirring realization. Love was not merely a respite from chaos, but a force that could hold its ground even against the fiercest tempests. But would we be strong enough to wield it through this darkening night? As the figures closed in, a sense of impending dread washed over me, thickening thoughts of both loss and the strength that love could give. There was no turning back now. The moment had come, and I could only hope we would weather it together. The air was electric with tension, every heartbeat echoing the unspoken fears that pressed against us like a tangible weight. Shadows danced ominously in the flickering light, merging into a grotesque theater of threat. Clara stood unmoving, caught in Paul's machinations, while Mariah's grip tightened, her resolve a sense of comfort that clashed violently against the rising tide of chaos. "Clara!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my chest. "You don't have to side with him. This isn't you." My own voice felt foreign, a frantic echo in a room that was spiraling into darkness. Yet my words seemed to ignite a spark of hesitation within her, a brief flicker of doubt amidst the shadows. Paul caught the subtle shift in her demeanor, an insidious gleam in his eyes. "Ah, there's our little heroine," he taunted, mocking the very essence of her struggle. "But courage alone won't save you. Not when you have everything to gain." His gaze shifted to Maria, and lost. "Shut up!" I shot back, as anger surged through me like fire. "You think that manipulating her will make you powerful? That's not power, that's cowardice." Rage pulled at my insides, and I knew I had to turn Clara back to us, to remind her of the strength that had united us just weeks before. But instead of clenching her fists in solidarity, Clara took a small step back, instinctively aligning herself more closely with Paul. The room felt smaller as I fought against the surge of dismay, an ache spreading through me at the sight of the person I once considered a friend now ensnared in a trap of fear and ambition. "Tom, please." Clara's voice trembled, her eyes glossing over with unshed tears. "You don't know what he's offered me. What I can become." The admission cut deeper than any blade, and guilt and sadness swirled within me. "And at what cost, Clara? At the cost of who you really are?" I wanted to reach for her, to bridge the expanse of uncertainty that seemed to yaw between us, but the shadows pushed closer, eager to capitalize on our despair. Mariah's movements were suddenly like quicksilver, unexpectedly stepping forward, her voice resolute and piercing through the cacophony around us. "You'll never truly be free, Clara, if you choose power over love. Look around you, this isn't the life you wanted, is it, love?" Paul sneered, utter disbelief lacing his words. "What a quaint notion. Love can't save you when the world is chaos. It is ambition that reigns supreme. You need to wake up." The weight of that assertion lingered, seeping into the corners of my mind. Was I fighting for something primitive, desperate, and fleeting? But then Mariah's hand was still in mine, her strength coursing through me as if she could siphon away my doubts. Tom, Maria, you don't understand. Clara's voice cracked, and for the briefest moment, the facade wavered. This is everything I've ever wanted, something to finally make me matter. Every word was laden with the pangs of ambition turning sour. I felt the distance narrow again. And what about us? I asked, my voice aching with sincerity. We mattered to you once. We can still be your anchor, Clara. You don't have to face this dark path alone. Her gaze darted between Paul and us, a flash of longing mixed with terror rippling across her features. Please, she begged, I can't do this. I won't be their pawn. But I don't know how to walk away. Everything feels like it's collapsing around me. As she grappled with her decision, the tall figure among the intruders lurched forward, pressing the advantage of our emotional upheaval. Enough of this farce. The time for words is gone. His voice boomed, laden with authority. You will hand over the girl, or you will face the consequences. I felt the air grow colder, like the grasp of death settling into the room. Clarity dawned over me. The stakes had risen sharply, and our time was swiftly running out. Consequences that would ripple out like devastating waves. I knew I had to act. Listen closely, I shouted, turning to face the throng of shadows. If you want Maria, you have to get through me first. My heart pounded with the weight of that promise, but I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within me. Maria squeezed my hand tighter, anchoring herself to me. We shared a single breath, a silent understanding that perhaps we could sink or swim together. The collective spark of defiance surged within me a final time, and I let go of everything else, surrendering to whatever fate awaited us. The curtains between possibilities hung on a knife's edge as fear and hope tangled together. Clara stepped back, uncertainty fading into the unknown in front of her as she wrestled with her loyalties. But my resolve shattered like glass the moment I felt the weight of Paul's gaze upon me, suffocating and contemptuous. Fine, if that's how you wish to play it, he hissed, motioning towards the shadows. Let the game commence. Every moment stretched, time pulling taut like a bowstring ready to snap. I could feel the impending catastrophe lurking, but amidst the chaos, Clara's face morphed into something that echoed the fleeting joys we had once shared. An unexpected kindness from her brief smile meant more than the edge of a blade or the villainy of shadows, and then, in a split second, everything changed. A new and haunting figure swept through the gaping door, a woman shrouded in a delicate veil of light that seemed to disperse the shadows around her. Her presence stirred the air, ringing with an otherworldly brightness that momentarily pierced the oppressive darkness. Enough! She called, her voice a soothing balm amidst turmoil. This ends now. In that moment, time stilled, a breath held captive by the sudden uncertainty. I strained to comprehend who she was, my heart racing faster than ever. The shadows seemed to quiver at her appearance, and I felt as if the weight of the world was shifting. Clara's eyes widened, shimmering with acknowledgement of some distant truth that threatened to swallow us all. I felt the ground ripple beneath us, the very fabric of our reality shifting as she stepped forward, a quiet determination flashing across her features. Do not fear the truth, the woman commanded, her eyes finding Clara's and then mine with fierce clarity. For love, the truest kind, will always find its way back home. With those words hanging in the air, a storm brewed, the tension stretching taut. Was this the light that could guide us through the dark? Or a harbinger of an even greater unknown? In those charged seconds, hope flickered like a fragile candle struggling against the tempest, and I could only brace myself for the next wave crashing down upon us, waiting for the unraveling that could either bind us together or tear us apart forever. I remember the first time I truly felt alone. It wasn't when I left the comfort of my childhood home or when I reluctantly parted ways with relationships that had once seemed unbreakable. It was on the night when the ensemble of my life began to unravel, a stark realization that people could be both present and profoundly absent all at once. As Clara stepped closer to the enigmatic woman, the shadows clung to her like a suffocating fog, battling against the fragile light that flickered around us. I felt a tide of desperation rise within me, pushing against the last threads of my grip on sanity. "What do you want from us?" I called out, barely finding the strength in my voice to question the source of this sudden illumination. "Not what I want," she replied, her eyes deep pools of warmth merging with steely determination. "It is what you seek: free will, the choice to forge your own destiny away from fear, from the darkness." Clara shifted, uncertainty pooling in her eyes. "But I don't know how," she whispered, her vulnerability echoing across the room, breaking through the chaos that threatened to pull us under. "Then let me guide you," the woman urged, stepping further into the light, the halo of her energy pushing the shadows back. "The path is not easy. I cannot promise you safety. But I can promise you clarity." Clara's voice faltered as if testing the syllables that clung to her past and present like two competing tides. "You died." A gasp rippled through the room, and I felt the air grow heavier. It was a confession that lingered, shading the silence with horror and unease. This woman, this angelic figure she carried, a name ripping through Clara's memory, ghosting over the past like a forgotten melody. "I am not the spirit of your sister," the woman said calmly, though I could see Clara's heart racing as she pieced together the shards of this new reality. "I am a guardian spirit, a reflection of everything lost and everything yet to be found. You must decide which path you will follow." Clara's breath quickened, fear and longing mingling on her face. "But what does that mean for me?" Her voice trembled, as if in her confusion lay every choice yet to be made. "I was lost before. What if I become lost again?" "Life is fraught with risks," the woman replied, her gaze steady on us all. "But holding on to the past like a chain will only suffocate you." Paul's sneer unleashed a new chaos into the air around us. "This is pathetic. You're all lost in some whimsical delusion." His disdain was palpable, a dark contrast to the light weaving its way through the room. Suddenly, Mariah's hand slipped from mine. I turned, desperate to understand the hurried moment between her and Clara, their eyes locking with an unspoken understanding. "Clara, don't listen to him." Mariah's voice rang out, fierce yet tender. "We have fought too hard to let fear dictate our choices. You are stronger than you know." With a deep breath, Clara drew herself up. The resolve ignited within her as shadows nipped at her heels, striving to reclaim their hold. "Then I choose love. I choose to avoid becoming a puppet in a game of power." The words burst forth as if wrenched from her very soul, resonating through the oppressive air. "I admire your desire for rebellion," Paul sneered, but his confidence wavered slightly. "But know that love is a weapon that betrays. It will only leave you shattered." Before I could formulate a response, the woman raised her hand, silencing Paul with an otherworldly strength. "Love is not a weapon, it is a sanctuary. And within it lies the strength to rise and heal. Clara, remember your sister. The threads of love form an unbreakable bond, even through death." Realizations flickered through Clara's gaze, igniting a spark of bravery that sent the shadows reeling. For an instant, the anger that had been festering in me transformed into a fragile but burning determination. "Clara!" I shouted, awareness dawning. "You are not just Clara anymore. You are the person we've built together. You are our future." Paul recoiled as if struck. "You think you have a future in love? It will lead you to ruin." His voice was a haunting echo, desperate and frantic, like the fragile whispers of those clinging to a sinking ship. As emotions swirled like a tempest, Clara slowly turned towards the woman again. "And if I choose love, what will you offer me?" "This," the woman declared, rooting herself in the light until it felt like an embrace, "is but one moment along your journey. Choose wisely, unleash the strength that lies within." Clara's eyes shimmered as she took a step forward, teetering on the precipice of decision. But the moment she steadied herself, I felt the world shift again, an ominous rumble surrounding us. The shadows trembled with fury, and Paul's expression turned from contempt to abhorrence. "Enough of this foolishness. You might think you can defy me, but I will make you pay," he thundered, and the other figures beside him stirred, their malevolence bubbling to the surface, eyes glinting with chills of betrayal and vengeance. Clara's breath hitched, her resolve flickering like that fragile candle against the storm, and in this moment of uncertainty, I felt our fates entwined tighter. We were teetering on that precarious edge between hope and despair, and with my heart racing, I reached for her hand, the anchor we needed in this dark flicker of a storm. But just as our fingers brushed, a piercing light shot through the room. I turned, instinctively shielded my eyes against the blinding brilliance, and when I looked back, Clara was enveloped in a radiant glow. The woman's voice echoed as if from the heavens, filled with purpose. The choice is yours, Clara. Will you defy the darkness and embrace the love waiting? With the ground quaking beneath us and the shadows howling for control, I felt my pulse quicken waiting, breath held tight, for the choice that could change everything. What if Clara stepped into the light, severed her ties to fear? What if we lost her to the depths of darkness instead? As Clara looked back, her gaze flitted between love and loss, determination and doubt. I could only hold my breath, the world teetering on the brink of devastation or salvation. The weight of the moment pressed on my chest, my heart caught in the tide as a single word echoed in the air, challenging fate itself. Choose. Every word hung in the air like a fragile promise, and Clara stood there, rooted, wrestling with demons both internal and external. Paul's threats seemed to slither through the room, wrapping around us with a cold grip, a palpable fear that crept into my bones. Choose! The woman's voice echoed, as if she were pulling back shadows of a life we had yet to embrace. With a quickened pulse, I could feel the weight of Clara's internal battle. It was more than just a choice. It was a delineation of her existence between holding on to a past that felt heavy with grief or stepping boldly toward the light toward us. What if I fail? Clara voiced the shadows of doubt, her voice barely above a whisper as her gaze darted away into the swirling chaos. Failure is part of the journey, the woman replied, her voice soothing yet forthright. Without it, you cannot forge the love waiting to embrace you. I could see Clara's resolve flicker, and then, slowly, a glimmer of hope seeped through the cracks of her fear. Remember your sister, Maria encouraged, stepping forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears that sparkled like stars caught in an endless night. Let her love guide you. Each heartbeat you feel is a step toward a new dawn. As Clara drew in a deep breath, time seemed to hold its breath alongside us. There was a luminous change in her. It poured from her like sunlight breaking through twilight clouds. I dared to reach for her again, fingers brushing against hers, feeling the electricity that ignited between our skins. The spark was grounding yet stirring, pulsating with expectation. But just as a soothing warmth enveloped us, the shadows retaliated. Dark figures, fed by fear and hatred, swarmed along the edges of the light like predators stalking their prey. I could see the glint of malice in Paul's eyes, a bitter determination burning within him. No! You don't get to choose. You're mine! His anger erupted, fueling an inferno of darkness that clawed its way toward us. Clara! My voice erupted, trembling with an urgency that sent waves of crystalline affection crashing over the air between us. You have a choice. You have us. Every syllable echoed with the weight of our shared history, the laughter, the sanctity of splayed bodies on worn sofas, the confessions shared under the midnight sky. Those memories fortified me, powered me, ignited a fire in my throat. Clara? I pleaded, and suddenly, the circle of light around her flickered, a diamond luminescence that refracted every spectrum of emotion within her. This is the moment. Paul lurched forward, powerful and menacing, his figure a silhouette of despair against the radiant beacon Clara had the potential to become. I will not let her go. He spat, reaching out towards her desperation as if to drag her back into the void of anger and regret. In that instant, something within Clara seemed to crystallize. You can't hold me down, Paul, she declared, her words firm as granite. You don't own the love I carry. You don't define who I am. The room quaked, the shadows stretching, curling like serpents yearning to swallow her whole. Yet Clara shone brighter, a comet breaking through the suffocating depths. I choose love, she shouted, her voice reverberating like a battle cry. Yes. Choose us. I shouted in unison, desperate for connection, eager to break the chains of fear that had bound her for too long. The woman, too, resonated with the strength of Clara's choice, her light illuminating everything around us. And then, in a moment that shattered time, Clara stepped forward, eyes bright and fierce. "I will not become a pawn in your game, Paul. I refuse." The shadows roared, fear transformed into chaos, vines of darkness thrashing against the light. A fierce whirlwind of conflicting energies spun wildly around us, threatening to tumble the very foundation on which we stood. Clara took the woman's outstretched hand, plunging into the luminous orb of hope that encased her fully. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the tension like glass. My heart twisted in horror as I looked toward the source. Paul's hand clasped over his throat, his face contorted in a bizarre mixture of betrayal and anguish. "Clara!" he howled, an echo of desperation laced with disbelief. "You've shattered the only chance you had. You don't know what you're doing." His words hung heavy in the air, sending a chill through my bones. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if stung by Clara's defiance, but retreat was momentary. They writhed closer, hungry for vengeance. "Stay close," I urged, fear gnawing at me as I pulled Clara deeper into the circle of light, my palm encompassing hers. Yet Clara looked back toward Paul, her eyes softened as they met his wild gaze, like a heartbeat straddling two worlds. "Love doesn't betray, Paul. It frees," she said softly, her voice carrying a tenderness that contrasted with the storm brewing around us. The shadows swelled, rapidly threatening to engulf everything we had fought for. But in Clara's gaze lay a resolution that could pierce through despair, and understanding that neither he nor any darkness could wield control over her heart again. With a final glance toward me, she stepped solidly into the light. The moment felt eternal, stretching forward, teetering on the edge of hope and despair, and then, as if in response to Clara's bravery, the shadows converged in fury, and a cacophony of chaos erupted. My heart thudded wildly in my chest, caught in the rush of emotions, and then, everything shifted. A blinding light erupted, blurring the line between shadow and illumination, pulling us all into a maelstrom of confusion, strength, and fear. And just as abruptly as it began, silence fell, a daunting stillness that ushered in a whole new dimension of uncertainty. I stood there, breathless, holding Clara's hand, yet she was beginning to flicker in and out of existence, the light around her pulsating with a rhythm I could not comprehend, a dimension of love and loss entwined. The reality of our world was being rewritten, yet in that flickering light, something vital glimmered, something that could still save us, if only we could hold on to it. But as the silence wrapped around us like a shroud, a harrowing question struck deep within me: what would happen if the light extinguished? Would Clara be lost forever? As panic churned in my gut, I realized that this was but the beginning of a deeper battle, one that would test not only our hearts but the bounds of our spirits. The shadows stirred again, angry and relentless, and I steeled myself, knowing our fight had merely transformed into something more profound. "Clara!" I called out, feeling the shift in the space around us, as the darkness persisted to claim its due, looming ominously over our fragile resolve. "Don't let go!" The darkness roared like a tempest, swirling around us, trying to claw back what we had fought so hard to protect. But in that chaos, Clara's light shone brighter, illuminating the shadows that threatened to consume us. I could feel her presence beyond the blinding radiance, fierce and unwavering. That warmth, that flicker of hope within her, was more than a mere spark. It was a conflagration of all we had built together. "Don't let go!" I shouted again, my voice carrying through the raucous storm. The shadows snapped and twisted, but Clara remained rooted at the edge of the light, her face a canvas of unwavering determination. With every step forward, she pushed back against the encroaching darkness, her strength fortified by the love that enveloped her like a protective cloak. And then, as quickly as the shadows converged, a hushed silence enveloped us. The air shifted, pulling tight around the edges of the truth we were living. I squeezed Clara's hand tighter as I felt the warmth of her skin against mine, a lifeline in a world spiraling into oblivion. "Clara!" Paul's voice pierced the stillness, a choked whisper laced with disbelief and rage. "You will regret this. You've thrown away everything." But I could see it, an irrefutable truth reflected in Clara's eyes. She was a storm unto herself, powerful and unyielding, and within her, she carried every moment that had led her to this day, to this defining choice. No, Paul, she answered softly, but her voice reverberated with strength. I embrace my choices. Love isn't a chain, it's my freedom. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stymied by the light that enveloped her. For every ounce of bitterness that spilled from Paul's lips, Clara's love bled clearer, narrating a tale of resilience that no darkness could claim. As those words hung heavy in the air, I felt the world shift once more, the very fabric of our existence realigning under the weight of Clara's declaration. The shadows writhed angrily, a roiling mass of despair, and I realized we were not merely at the edge of danger, we were embodying the pinnacle of change. Dense and twisted like the labyrinth of your greed. Paul howled, stepping back as if the light were wielding a weight he could not shoulder. Do you really think you can change the course of our fates? Every day is a choice, Clara said with newfound clarity. And today I choose my path. To love, to embrace the light, regardless of the shadows behind me. And she began to walk forward, the brilliance of her resolve illuminating the very essence of our shared existence. Suddenly, as if responding to her courage, the shadows seemed to shatter, a cascade of darkness spilling away to reveal the dimensional depths of our reality. Each strand dissipated into flickering motes of broken light, leaving behind a corridor of possibilities stretched wide before us. My heart soared as the oppressive weight began to lift, a tangible feeling of hope rushing in to fill the void. Clara! I called out, needing to both reach for her and remind her of the tether connecting us. Walk with me! With a firm grip, she took a step forward, reclaiming the space carved between us, and Paul, a challenge and an empowerment merging in the motion. I could feel the warmth of our hands united in love, pouring life into the intersection of release and acceptance. This is not the end, Paul shouted, his tone yet tinged with disbelief, unable to comprehend our defiance. You will abandon all that we fought together. We fought for peace in despair, Paul, I cried, stepping forward and finding my own voice. And we have chosen to cultivate a new light, a joy that you cannot extinguish. The shadows twisted angrily, trying to reclaim Clara, but each bolt of darkness fell short against her radiant glow. Together, we stood as a united front against the chaos, breathing life into a mantra that echoed through our hearts. Love conquers despair. In that moment of clarity, I could feel the pull of the invisible connection forged by our fight, a shared purpose thrumming between us, intertwining our resolve, love, and the lessons we'd learned in suffering. The whispers of our past began to grow quieter, overshadowed by the certainty that stitched us together as one. I am so sorry, I whispered, feeling the sincerity of every lost moment. Clara's eyes held mine, brimming with compassion as she searched for truths in our shared journey. I was afraid, I continued, my heart racing with urgency. Afraid of losing you and afraid of the silence that filled the void, and everything I held on to became chains rather than ground I could grow upon. But look at us, Clara said softly, brushing her thumb over the back of my hand, grounding the very essence of our shared solitude. We're alive. We're here, together fighting for us, for our story. And in that realization, I saw the flicker of hope reaffirmed in the light surrounding Clara, her bravery amplifying our resolve together. We could rewrite our destiny, paving the way for a future yet untold. As Paul stepped backward, confusion wrestling with uncertainty shadowing his expression, the growing light consumed him. Your madness will be your undoing, he screamed as the shadows recoiled from Clara's luminous flame. But just then, a whisper brushed against the silence, a ripple of realization threading through my heart. You're losing your grip, Paul, not just of us, but of yourself, I said, feeling the weight of each word pierce through the thick air around us. We have the power to forge ahead. And in that moment, a resounding crack echoed, reverberating through the very fabric that had once tethered us to our strugglesome monumental shift that tilted the axis of our lives forever. In love we rise, Clara declared, her voice resonating with every beat of her heart. In that shared affirmation, I could feel the shadows drain away, their fierce grasp faltering as we stood together, tethered by the bond we had forged through struggles and sacrifices. Together, we were reclaiming our place under the sun, conjuring light and love that not even the bitterest of storms could extinguish. And as we emerged from the darkness, a clear path unfolded ahead, the glimmers of a new dawn lighting our way. In that moment of profound realization, the final threads of tension laced our breath, weaving through the space between fear and possibility. And as the weight of despair shattered under the illuminating strength of love, I held Clara close, knowing we had passed the threshold of an unstoppable journey. No longer tethered to the shadows that had harmed us, we embraced the truth of who we had become, bound together. For in the fabric of our intertwined destinies, I could feel a triumphant pulse of love entwining every heartbeat, echoing throughout the endless expanse ahead. "Love is our anchor," I whispered finally, feeling the vibrant truth settle around us. "Love is our light," Clara replied, her eyes sparkling like stars reborn anew. Together, we breathed in the sweet air of renewed purpose, bursting forth into the open, victorious against the chains we had shattered. We stepped forth, hand in hand, into the ever-unfolding brilliance of our beautiful, shared future. And within the echoes of hope, beneath the shadows left behind, I understood that was the beginning of the rest of our lives. And with every heartbeat, I realized that love truly conquers all.